Alright, what's up? So, this is going to be a video kind of talking about pretty much the secrets of Omito. Um, for a long time, right? Like, you might watch Omito play, and it just seems like when you watch him play, it's like he always seems to figure out how to just maintain control in a match at all times. Like, at all times. Just maintain control, and it's just like I almost feel like, you know how we play in America, sometimes we just be swinging, bro. Like, we be going ham, and I just be thinking like, man, maybe people in Japan don't play like that. But I've definitely seen some, even like on his streams when he net plays, like they be wild with Soul just like how we wild with Soul, you know. Like it's not, that's not the issue, you know what I'm saying? So basically, like, the way with Johnny, it's like there's a lot of key moments where like literally it just kind of comes down to like one of two things. It's either A, you're either doing too much, or B, you're like pressing some of the wrong buttons at the wrong times. Figuring out which one to do, it's a little complicated, but it's I got a simple example here of how, you know, pressing the correct buttons can just make a situation way easier to deal with, right? So we have Soul, right? So like, I remember when I used to fight Soul, like, I actually used to have trouble dealing with this move. Now everyone, like, yeah, someone in Discord, they're just like, oh, like, how do I deal with Riot Stomp? They're like, oh, you just 6p, right? Or something like that, right? But the reality is that that's not really the issue. It's not really raw Riot Stomp is the issue. It's more so like you're applying pressure, like you're like doing stuff, and in the middle of you doing something, he Riot Stomps you, right? And that's really the issue, right? That's like one of the, that's a simple example there of how like people falsely identify the problem. They're like, well, how do I deal with Riot Stomp? It's like, oh, you 6p. But the problem is, that's not really the problem. A lot of times when people complain about Riot Stomp, like something like that, the problem is that like you're like you're rushing in, and you press a button that has so much recovery that you can't do nothing about the Riot Stomp if the button is whiffed, right? So like, this is like an easy example of like how just pressing the right buttons at the right time can easily deal with a scenario. So like, we're just gonna pretend that like when I'm dashing here is like after like I did like 5H miscancel, right? And I'm dashing in, trying to continue my pressure. I might be trying to go for a throw or something like that, right? So like versus Soul, right? Like a pretty common thing to do would be to go for you might dash in. Maybe you're doing throw S. That's actually a really good example. Maybe like you're doing like a block string, right? And then like you dash in and you go for throw S, and that happens, right? So when that happens, you gotta realize like what actually happened there, because that's actually kind of an interesting situation there, right? Because like what I wanted was a throw, but I didn't get a throw. So then the other thing that I want out of that scenario is close S, but I get far S, right? So it's because the far S comes out in this situation whoa, that you end up getting punished. So that's what I mean, right? So like, literally in this situation, hitting a different button here when you dash in on Soul, if you think that's an option he might do, is the answer. You know? Like, that's actually the answer. The answer is just, oh, don't use S, because you're getting far S instead of close S. If you got close S, it wouldn't be an issue. You would recover and then be able to punish, you know? So, like, yeah, button selection is mad key. Like, that's like a real common example. Like, the other example is like, which is like, versus like any character, is like when, like, you're mounting offense, right? And they like decide to like backdash or something, right? And your button ends up whiffing. So that's not whiffing right now. Yeah, Soul's backdash is kind of ass, I see. Let me try this. Yeah, like a situation like that. Like, let's say once again, after he's already blocking, I'm dashing up, hitting buttons, and he's doing that, right? So the problem is I picked the wrong button. If I had dashed up and I did like 2P, I can air throw. If he jumps, right? But you have to expect him to jump. But if he's shown you that he's jumping in a situation like that, it's easy to recognize the answer there. That's like mad important. That works also, same thing with backdash, like same thing. Like, just think about what's happening. Or like, let's say they just jump straight up, right? Right, and like they're in the corner, right? Well, same thing, right? It's like, if you press a button there, that recovery of that 5H, it kills you. But if I do something with smaller recovery, it's easier to have an answer. Even if maybe it's not 2P, right? Maybe it's just, maybe this time it is close S, because I'm going to get close S this time, right? Same scenario, right? But like when you're like pressing buttons and they're whiffing like this, that's bad. That's how you lose control of the match. That's how you kind of fumble the pace of the match. Like, you got the ball in your hand, you're running down the field, and then when you let stuff like this happen, that's a fumble, basically. Like, that's a fumble. You're doing things that's causing you to lose control of the match. You know, so you always want to think about, like, okay, I don't want to lose control of my pressure. I don't want to lose control of the situation where I'm at advantage. So you always want to press the correct buttons in the correct scenario. So that's just something to think about. It's definitely one of Omito's secrets with this character for sure. And it's definitely a key thing to understand, also to definitely beat Omito for sure. So yeah, that's another angry thoughts. Quick little thing here. So appreciate it. Hit the like button, all that. You already know.